maneuvers, and then y'all can dip, I guess. I don't know if Stokes wants y'all to stay the whole time, because we already did.
Well, it's 8 to 10 and then 10 to 12.
Oh.
So
There are
2
two
left.
classes.
Yeah, I forget. I haven't been here in like a few days. Was I here last week? I was here last week. Anyway, we're going to start with volume control here. I'm just going to be in front of you, so I want you. Okay, I'll just talk loud for you. Okay, we're going to start on volume control. We're going to do additional settings under volume control. You guys know how to do the... So you're whispering.
You speak loud.
Yeah. Do y'all know how to do the SST on here?
It takes 90 seconds.
No,
Yes, 90 seconds. No,
It's
no,
super
no,
easy.
I thought I
Go to
did
the
it wrong.
main, and then you do new patient, accept patient,
Oh, no, I'm okay. I've been safe.
and then there's another thing that you just press
Just making
accept,
sure.
and then you do.
Okay, we're gonna do volume control additional settings. Okay, I'm gonna be yelling to y'all on the front. She can't hear, so we're good. You know your additional settings are under the ones that have the little yellow triangle, so you don't need to be clicking everything. Just click the ones that have the triangle.
Yellow triangle? Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
It's my first time on this one.
Okay, yellow triangle, additional settings, okay? We're gonna start over here with VSync. They tell us not to use it, we do use it. Basically, when it's turned on, it turns the mode into PRVC. Next, you have VSync rise. It's gonna be how fast to pip on those VSync breaths. So if VSync is turned on, then the VSync rise is applicable. If VSync is turned off, it don't mean the thing. And then here you have Psy as well, same as the Draeger.
Sorry, I wanted to move out of the
So Draeger has Psy, but it works a little differently. On here, when you turn Psy on, you use it for recruitment, same as Draeger. But you use it if your tidal volumes are at 4 mils per kilo, and it's gonna deliver 1.5 times your tidal volume, and every 100 breaths, and it doubles your eye time by doing so. So, turning it on for recruitment and for low tidal volumes.
For long or low?
Wait, what?
Low.
What did you
4
just
mils
say?
per kilo.
Tourniquet on for
Turn it on.
Oh,
Turn it
I was
on?
like tourniquet
Because it's
on.
just on or off. You can't really set PEEP or anything like that like on the Draeger. It's just on or off. On
Turn it on for recruitment.
Yes. Ready?
I thought you said
Put it
size.
on.
I thought you said size.
Size. Just size. So I hit peak flow over there for additional settings. Under there you've got demand flow. It's also just an on or off. When it's turned on, your patient can access additional flow or volume if they want it, if they work hard enough when it's on, to just help synchronize it a little bit better. Next one is your waveform. So you can do either square or decelerating. You can adjust the shape of it. You'll do square for your obstructive patients, decelerating for restrictive or anyone else. So you can adjust that there. Then under flow trigger, this is where you've got bias flow as well, kind of like on the GE, but it's a little more particular here, and your pressure trigger. So here, if I was to set this lower, it's going to give me a message. So your bias has to be greater than your flow trigger for your flow trigger to be active. Your pressure trigger is always going to be on in the background though. So no matter where you set your bias, pressure is always active. But if you want flow trigger to be the one that's active, you want to set it at or greater than your flow trigger setting. That message should go away. And this additional setting is available on every mode, so I'm not going to go over it over and over again, but it's going to be on every mode that you change to, because you always have a trigger. Okay, any questions? Moving on. And I go to pressure control. Under pressure control, we have machine volume, volume limit, and inspiratory rise. Machine volume is your minimum volume limit that you want, since your volumes vary in pressure modes. You set it at 100 mils below your volume that you want. And then you also have volume limit. That's gonna be set at 100 to 250 mils above the volume that you want because you can get more and more and more too. You wanna prevent volume trauma, so it's like an upper volume limit. And then you also have Inspirise here. That's your rise time. What's Inspirise?
How fast you get to fit.
How fast to pip. Under inspiratory time,
So I guess Insprise is similar to V-Sync Rise. Okay.
PSV rise.
Okay.
All the rise.
I was like-
There's like 3 different rises on this.
Perfect.
So they're all gonna work the same. It goes from 1 to 9 as your setting. 5 is your default. If you have an air hungry patient, set it at 1. If not, 5. I don't know when you'll ever use 9, but 5 is a good number to start with. Under your inspiratory time setting, you have a flow cycle percent advanced setting. We don't use it because it'll make your time cycle machine breath into flow cycled as if it's a spontaneous breath. So it's another setting that we're told to usually avoid. So don't use that one. And like I said, flow trigger is always going to have bias and pressure trigger under it. Next, we're going to go to volume SIMV. So in order to study a little bit less, your AC settings for volume SIMV are going to be the same as volume AC. You don't have to know every time. If you go under volume, you're still going to have V-Sync, V-Sync rise, and psi, peak flow, demand flow, and waveform, same as your VC-AC settings. The only difference is going to be on your pressure support. So pressure support has 4 settings under it. You've got volume limit, because with more pressure support, you can get more volume. So you want to set an upper limit. 1 to 250 above. Then you've got PSV rise. This is the 3rd rise we see. We have got V-Sync rise, we've got Inspirize, now we have PSV rise, so it's how fast to pip on your spontaneous breaths. Then you have PSV cycle percent. That's how you cycle off your spontaneous breaths based on a percent of peak inspiratory flow. And then PSV T-max. That's if you never reach that peak inspiratory flow and cycle off your breath. It's a secondary time cycle to end your spontaneous breath. And then your flow trigger, same as usual. Okay. Any questions so far? No?
If you never reach your what?
Peak inspiratory flow. So if I wanted to set it at 25% of my peak inspiratory flow and I never reach that 25, you're just going to keep going into your breath. And so PSV T-max, it time cycles that spontaneous breath. Because normally they're flow. And pressure SIMV, same stuff as pressure control over here, right? Machine volume, volume limit, Inspirize. Same pressure support settings as on VC SIMV. So study less because it's combined again. And same over here with your triggers. I'm gonna go to PRVC next. Under volume, you have volume limit and Inspirize. Volume limit is going to be your maximum, right? So set it 100 to 250 above what volume you're trying to aim for. And then Inspirize is your rise time, just as usual. And then under this, you've got that flow cycle again under I time. We don't set it because it's going to set it your spontaneous. It's going to end it as if it's a spontaneous breath, but it's a machine breath, so we don't use it. It's not that bad. It's just additional settings. I know y'all hate it right now. We're gonna do APRV next. So APRV is gonna be the one that has all these new settings under it. Under time high, or I time, you've got time high sync percent and then time high PSV. We set a synchronization percent, and basically if you have a window, let's say this is your total I time, and you set it at like 20%, towards the end, the last 20% of your inspiration, you are able to cycle into exhalation. It kind of synchronizes with the patient's effort to breathe out. It gives them a window based on what you set. Set at like 20, and it gives them that window of 20% to breathe out if they want to. Then we have T-high PSV. It's gonna match whatever PSV you put over here. So if I put them on like pressure 4 to 10, if I turn this on, they'll get 10 pressure support on I time as well. That's T-high PSV, kind of like over there on bi-level. 10 pressure
So that just only turns it on or off?
Yeah. So if it's just on, it'll give them that same pressure support on I time as they normally get on E time, because you usually get pressure support to start from low to go high. But they'll get a little more on high.
Okay.
Then we've got time low sync, same thing, just the opposite. So set it no more than 50%, which I think is the max it goes to. And at 50% of their exhalation, if they want to breathe in again, it'll synchronize with them from going low to high. Pressure support ones will be the same as they were on the SINV modes that we saw. So volume limit, because you can get pressure support, you get more volume, so set an upper volume limit. Then we have PSV rise, PSV cycle percent, and PSV Tmax. Any questions on those? Just repetition at this point, because it's mixing up different modes, so you'll see the same stuff again. And then flow trigger. This flow trigger. That's it. Last one we've got is CPAP. On here you'll see the same pressure support additional settings as usual, and your flow trigger ones. So nothing different there either.
So with the apnea settings,
Uh-huh.
like how do we?
Yeah, so you want to go into apnea mode. Anytime you put them on a spontaneous mode like CPAP, your patient has the ability to go apneic because they're just getting support, right? Let's say they just go to sleep and they forget to breathe. You'll go into either volume or pressure control, and if you hit apnea settings, you can set either volume or pressure control settings. So this way you can ensure that they're not dying on your watch. So put that off, put it back on volume control and set that. So those are all the additional settings. It seems like a lot when you're looking at your paper, but a lot of them cross over into the different modes, so it's really not too much. Just knowing what it is, what to set it on is your main task, I guess, with this one. Reset that. On here, you'll set your alarm limits over here, just the alarm limits button. There's a lot of them on this one as well, so we'll go over those too. High respiratory rate, I usually set at 25. You'll get to clinic, you'll see it at 55. Just 25 for school. Let you get to it. On here, nothing is saved until you hit this checkbox, or you can touch it again and it saves the number. This is low tidal volume exhale. We'll do like 150, and this is in liters, so notice the decimal. There's high tidal volume. You also have a low minute ventilation and a high minute ventilation. They look the same, so just make sure you're looking at it closely. Low peak pressure. It's kind of like your disconnection alarm. So I usually just set it a little bit above PEEP because I don't want them to disconnect and lose their PEEP. And then high peak pressure, typically 10 to 15 above, just like normal, your high pressure alarm. Low PEEP alarm is going to be a new one. I think the Servo has one, or the PB. I think it's Servo. It's going to be 2 below your set PEEP. So if you set it at 5, set it at 3. We'll do 4. And apnea time is always going to be 20 seconds for adults. Okay? Then on here, you hit main, you can access your loops. You've got flow volume and pressure volume. So if they ask you to adjust the scale, because I know Restrepo likes that a lot, you can touch the scale here, change the size of it. Make sure you know how to do that, because I think he will ask. And then same with on your main waveforms, you can do the same thing there too. Just touch the scale and adjust. Monitors are nice to have just on the screen if you're just doing vent checks in clinic, because you don't want to keep going into these COVID rooms. You can see it from outside the room. You've got your inspiratory hold, expiratory hold down here. So if I just hold it down here, should get a plateau there. There you go. We don't really use trends. You can go to maneuvers here and you can get your MIP and P-Flex, Auto PEEP, all those numbers here. You just start it, set the sensitivity. You don't have to know that for your check off. Just know where to find it. And then recalibration. We don't use utility either. Standby is a good one to know. Standby, take them off. Yes. here, you can also access the same stuff up here, just on the screens button. You can freeze if you need to look at the waveform a little bit more and move it around if you want to pinpoint something on there. And then we don't use a vent, but if you needed to log that you got a blood gas on a patient that's intubated with this vent, you can log that in, or a diagnostic procedure or anything like that. We don't use it, so it's there. You can adjust your modes here too, either here, or you can just touch the mode up top. Advanced settings, you guys know. Setup, if you needed to change to a Neo mode, we'll set that up. Here's where you'll see your TCPL. What's TCPL?
Time constant.
Time constant. Time constant, pressure limited, but it's also flow limited. It's not in the name. It's a neonatal mode. That's all he told us last year, so I'm guessing that's all he expects y'all to know this year, but I don't know. So just know it's only on the Neo mode. Go back to adult. I know. Neb, I guess if you want to run it through the vent, we usually just use Airgens. You won't need the neb button. Over here, if you give them a manual breath, it'll just match the settings you already have. It's not giving you an extra FiO2 or anything like that. If you suction them, it'll increase their FiO2 as well, or you can just give them an O2 boost with the increase button itself. That's about it. I don't know what else there is. A lot of just knowing the additional settings, knowing where to find stuff. Yeah. That's it. That's all I got. Yeah. Guys have any questions? No? Okay. I'm going home.
Thank you, Cindy.
I have to be here till 12.